Some roads are forgotten because time moves on. Others are forgotten because something there never left. In rural Thailand, there is a road with no name. After midnight, drivers say a woman once stood there, asking for a ride. Those who stopped were never the same. Those who didn't, remembered her anyway. This is not a story about ghosts. It is a story about a choice. And what follows when you don't turn back. Chapter 1. The Road Without a Name. That road has no name. Not because someone forgot to give it one, but because no one wants to say its name out loud. On the provincial road map, it appears only as a faint gray line, as if someone once tried to erase it and then hesitated, leaving behind an incomplete trace. The locals refer to it in whispers, the Old Forest Road, the Rubber Plantation Route, or simply, that road. During the day, there is nothing remarkable about it. The asphalt is cracked and peeling, flanked by aging rubber trees whose pale, mottled trunks resemble the skin of someone long ill and untreated. Fallen leaves pile up thick on the ground, crunching beneath passing tires like dry bones breaking. As long as the sun is still high, people drive through, quickly, rarely stopping. But when night falls, the road reveals its true nature. After midnight, mist seeps out from the forest, low and heavy, crawling along the ground like something alive. Moonlight, if there is any, never reaches the surface of the road. People say that light entering this stretch is swallowed whole, leaving behind not ordinary darkness, but a hollowed-out absence, like a piece of memory that has been erased. Veteran drivers pass down a warning. This road does not like to be stared at. If you keep your eyes fixed straight ahead, the road will seem to stretch endlessly. But if your attention drifts, if you glance at the rearview mirror, or turn your head for even a moment without reason, then something will be standing behind you. Very close. Accidents have happened here, not just one, but many. Some made the news. Others survived only as trembling stories told over cheap liquor late at night. Vehicles losing control, pedestrians disappearing, blood soaking into the soil, washed away by rain, but the ground remembers. The elders in the village say that some spirits who die unjustly cannot leave. They do not know they are dead, or they refuse to accept it. And the place where they wait the longest is the place where they last believed someone might still see them. That is why, after midnight, no one waits for a ride on this road. And if someone does, then that thing is no longer human. Chapter 2. The Night Driver. Somchai was used to the dark. Nearly 20 years of driving long-haul trucks had taught him how to distinguish every shade of night. Nights with moonlight and nights without. The quiet darkness of rural villages and the thick, oil-scented darkness of deserted highways. To Somchai, darkness was simply part of the job, like the steering wheel, the accelerator, or the steady growl of the engine beneath his feet. He often joked that if ghosts really existed, even they would have to make way for people trying to earn a living at night like him. Somchai drove produced trucks from farms in the north down to the central wholesale markets. The vegetables had to arrive before dawn, which meant he had to travel during the hours most people avoided. That night, he left later than usual. It wasn't raining, but the air was damp, clinging to his skin in an uncomfortable way. When his truck turned off the main provincial road, Somchai knew he was heading toward the road without a name. He hesitated for a few seconds, tightening his grip on the steering wheel. There were other routes, longer ones, but they would cost more time and fuel. He glanced at the clock. If he didn't take this road, he would miss the market. It's just a road, he muttered, as if trying to convince himself. The tires rolled onto old asphalt with a dry, brittle sound. On both sides, the rubber trees stood in darkness, their trunks illuminated by the headlights like silent figures pressed close together. Watching, there was no wind, yet the leaves rustled faintly, producing a muffled sound that resembled whispers being smothered. Then the radio turned itself on. Not music. Not the news. A low, chanting voice emerged through heavy static, a Buddhist prayer, broken and distorted, as if someone were reciting it from very far away, through layers of earth and walls. Somchai startled and quickly turned the radio off. His heart beat a little faster. He had never believed in omens. But there are moments when the body reacts before the mind can understand what is happening. The truck continued deeper into the forest. Somchai did not know that the instant his tires touched that road, something had already noticed him. And it had been waiting. For a very long time. Chapter 3. The Woman by the Roadside. Somchai saw her before he realized he was slowing down. It wasn't a conscious decision. His foot lifted from the accelerator on its own, as if some unseen command had passed through his body, forcing him to reduce speed, to look more carefully at the figure standing by the roadside. The woman stood right where the headlights reached, at the boundary between light and darkness. She did not step fully into the road, nor did she retreat into the forest. She stood exactly where everything became uncertain. She wore a pale traditional Thai silk dress, old enough that the embroidered seams had begun to fray, like scars that had never fully healed. Her long hair fell forward, hiding most of her face, revealing only a narrow chin and skin that was unnaturally pale, lacking the warmth of the living. What was strange was how straight she stood. She did not huddle against the cold. She did not glance around in fear. Her posture was that of someone who had been waiting for a very long time, long enough to grow tired, but still afraid to sit down, as if the moment she did, she might miss something important. Somchai passed her in the first few seconds. A normal thought crossed his mind. Why is someone standing here at this hour? Immediately after, a chill ran up his spine, as if that question itself should never have been asked. He slammed on the brakes. The truck stopped a few meters away. The engine kept running, headlights flooding her figure with harsh white light. Slowly, the woman lifted her head. Her face was indistinct, as though veiled by a thin layer of mist, but her eyes were deep black, reflecting no light at all. "Sir?" Her voice was very soft, not the trembling plea of someone begging for help, not the urgent tone of someone in danger. It was even, low, and calm to the point of unease, forcing Somchai to hold his breath to hear it. "Could you give me a ride for a short distance? It's very late." She didn't name a destination. She didn't explain why. She simply stood there, both arms wrapped tightly around an old cloth bag pressed to her chest, as if it contained something precious, something she could not afford to let go of. Somchai looked around. The road was empty. The rubber forest was silent. There were no houses, no lights, nothing but his truck in the darkness. His instincts screamed that this was wrong, that no one should be standing here at this hour. Yet another thought slipped in, small and dangerously gentle. If I don't stop, how long will she stand here? He opened the door. The hinge creaked loudly, the sound traveling farther than it should have in the still night. The woman stepped forward. Her movements were so light that Somchai heard no footsteps at all. When she bowed her head in thanks, her hair shifted slightly, and for a brief moment, Somchai felt that the air around her had grown noticeably colder. She climbed into the back seat. The door closed softly. So softly that Somchai wasn't sure whether he truly heard the familiar click, or whether something else had just closed behind him. Chapter 4. The Backseat. The moment the door closed, Somchai knew the cabin was no longer the same. The engine was still running steadily. The fuel gauge hadn't moved. By every logical measure, nothing had changed, and yet the air inside the truck felt heavier, denser, as if someone had brought the night itself inside with them. Somchai did not turn around right away. He kept his eyes fixed on the road ahead, both hands on the steering wheel, his knuckles turning white. In the rearview mirror, he could see the woman's long hair draped over her shoulders, her face hidden. She sat perfectly upright, knees pressed together, the old cloth bag resting on her lap, her hands folded over it like someone waiting silently for a ritual to begin. The truck began to move. There were no directions given, no questions asked. The woman did not speak another word. The silence stretched on, not the comfortable kind, but the kind that felt watched. That made Somchai's breathing shallow and uneven. He took a breath, and noticed a smell. It wasn't perfume. It wasn't sweat. It was the smell of damp earth mixed with decaying leaves, the kind of scent that lingered after days of rain in an old cemetery, where the ground was always soft and cold. The odor spread slowly, but once he noticed it, he couldn't ignore it. Somchai glanced at the mirror again. His heart skipped. The woman's reflection was incomplete. Her lower body faded into a haze. Her upper form flickered, appearing and disappearing like an image blurred by water. Yet the cloth bag remained sharply visible, old, dark, and solid, as though it did not belong to the same world as the person holding it. "It's just the fog," Somchai muttered, though his voice sounded hoarse and unconvincing. The road ahead seemed to stretch unnaturally long. Wherever the headlights reached, darkness retreated, but never vanished. The rubber trees on both sides repeated endlessly, like scenery trapped in a loop. Suddenly, Somchai heard the faint rustle of fabric behind him. The woman shifted. "Have you been driving at night for long?" The question came without warning. Her voice was calm, emotionless. Somchai flinched, nearly jerking the wheel. "Why, yes, a long time," he replied, forcing his voice steady. "Then you must be used to late-night roads." It wasn't a question. It was an observation. Somchai nodded, though he wasn't sure she could see him. In the mirror, her hair moved slightly, but her face remained swallowed by shadow. A chilling realization settled over him. She wasn't watching the road ahead. She was watching something else. And whatever it wasn't outside the truck. Chapter 5. No reflection. Somchai began to avoid the mirror. Not because he was afraid of seeing something too clearly, but because every time he glanced at it, something was missing. The image behind him was always incomplete, as if someone had deliberately cut essential frames out of reality. He focused on the road, counted the utility poles, listened to the engine to keep himself grounded. But the rearview mirror remained there, right at eye level, like a trap waiting for a moment of carelessness. Eventually, Somchai looked. The instant his eyes met the mirror, his heart tightened. The back seat was reflected clearly, the dark upholstery, the small tear in the right corner, the jacket he had thrown there days ago. Everything was exactly as it should be. Everything except the woman. Her hair appeared faint, like smoke. Her left shoulder seemed to dissolve into the darkness. And from the knees down, there was nothing at all. As if the lower half of her body did not exist. Somchai blinked hard, again and again, trying to drive the image away. He reached up and wiped at the mirror, though he knew he couldn't touch it. Nothing changed. "Do you find it strange?" Her voice came from behind him, very close. Somchai froze. No, he answered too quickly, too clumsily. The mirror must be fogged. Silence followed. The truck kept moving. The road remained dark, but Somchai felt as if time itself had paused for a single beat, waiting for her reaction. "Back then, I used to look into mirrors too." The comment had nothing to do with what Somchai had just said. "I was afraid I looked tired. Afraid I would disappear and no one would notice." Her voice was flat, neither sad nor angry. Somchai swallowed. He wanted to ask back then when, but his tongue felt heavy, useless. The smell of damp earth grew stronger. Breathing became difficult. Somchai cracked the window open. Cold night air rushed in, carrying the scent of forest and mist. But the smell inside the truck didn't fade. It clung to the seats, the steering wheel, his lungs. "Do you believe," she continued softly, "that some people die, but mirrors refuse to recognize them?" A shiver ran through Somchai. He looked at the mirror again, as if pulled by something beyond his will. This time, only the cloth bag remained. It sat on the back seat, terrifyingly clear, old fabric, darkened with age, the bottom smeared with dried mud. The straps were folded neatly, as if it had just been placed there with care. No hair, no shoulders, no body. "But if someone can still see me," her voice whispered right beside his ear, so cold that Somchai felt his skin prickle. "Then it means I'm still here." Somchai screamed and slammed on the brakes. The truck jolted to a stop in the middle of the pitch-black road. He twisted around in his seat. The back seat was empty. Yet the cloth bag was still there. And Somchai knew, with chilling certainty, he was no longer alone in that truck. Chapter 6. The Unnaturally Long Road. After the sudden stop, Somchai did not turn off the engine. The motor continued to rumble, the headlights cutting into the darkness ahead. Yet the road seemed utterly unaffected by the light. It lay there, long, narrow, unchanged, as if it had never been interrupted by his actions at all. Somchai panted, cold sweat running down his spine. He turned to look at the back seat again. Still empty. Only the old cloth bag lay quietly on the seat, unmoved, not even shifted by the violent braking. That detail unsettled him more than if he had seen the woman sitting there. He wondered, how long had it been there? Somchai pressed the accelerator and drove on. The truck rolled forward, and immediately he noticed the second abnormality. The scenery along the road began to repeat itself. The same rubber tree struck by lightning, its top broken, the same utility pole leaning slightly to the left, the same faded warning sign, its letters so worn they were unreadable. 3 times. 4 times. Somchai was certain he had not turned around. He checked the clock. 12:17 a.m. The second hand was frozen, nailed to the face. He tapped the glass. Nothing happened. The digital clock on the dashboard showed the same time. Time inside the truck had stopped. That's impossible, Somchai whispered, his voice swallowed by the sound of the engine. The road stretched far beyond what it should have. 15 minutes passed, then 20. Still no exit, no village lights, no sign that he was nearing the end. The asphalt ahead became an endless ribbon, swallowing his wheels and returning the same lifeless scenery again and again. The smell of damp earth grew overpowering. Somchai's head began to spin, not from fatigue, but from disorientation. It felt like standing inside a dream while fully aware that one was dreaming, yet being unable to wake up. Suddenly, he heard breathing. Very faint. Not from a throat. Not from the backseat. But from right beside him. Somchai froze. He didn't dare turn his head. Out of the corner of his eye, he saw the passenger side window fogged over, and across it appeared a long streak, as if fingers had just dragged slowly across the glass from the inside. "Don't worry." The familiar voice spoke again, no longer coming from behind. "The road is always longer for those who once drove past and never turned back." Somchai's throat went dry. Where are you?" he asked, his voice trembling. A soft laugh answered him. There was no humor in it. "Where you cannot see." The headlights flickered. In that brief moment, Somchai understood something terrifying. This road was not taking him forward. It was leading him backward. Chapter 7. The question that should never be asked. Somchai could no longer remember how long he had been driving. His body remained upright behind the steering wheel, hands clenched until they ached, but his sense of time had slipped away without him noticing. The road ahead was unchanged, endless, unyielding, like a memory stretched beyond reason to punish the one forced to relive it. The woman's voice had grown quieter now. She no longer spoke often, and that silence frightened Somchai more than her words ever had. It felt like the pause before someone decides to say something the listener will never be able to escape. Somchai swallowed. He knew he should not ask. But if he didn't, he would lose his mind. Who are you? Really? The moment the question left his mouth, the air inside the truck shifted. The headlights dimmed slightly, as if the darkness had taken one cautious step closer. The engine's sound deepened, losing its steady rhythm, becoming heavy and strained, like it was dragging an invisible weight behind it. "I had a name." Her voice came slowly, deliberately. "But it has been a long time since anyone spoke it." Somchai felt his heart tighten. "Then, where are you trying to go?" he asked, even though each word scraped painfully against his throat. A long silence followed. This time, Somchai sensed that the entire road was listening. "I don't want to go anywhere." Her voice dropped lower. "I just want to go home." The word home landed softly, yet it pressed so heavily on Somchai's chest that he struggled to breathe. He thought of the stories told by the villagers, of spirits unable to move on because they no longer knew whether their homes still existed. "Where is your home?" he asked. The moment the question ended, Somchai knew he had made a mistake. The windows began to tremble, not from wind, but as if someone were knocking from outside. One tap, then another, then a third, slow, measured, like a knock on a door in the dead of night. "You've seen me before." Her voice did not answer directly. "You were very close. Close enough that I thought you would stop." A hazy image flared in Somchai's mind, a rainy night. Headlights flaring white through the storm. A figure standing by the roadside. one arm clutching her stomach. Her body bent forward in pain. He shuddered. I don't remember, he whispered. A soft sigh passed through the cabin, like wind drifting through an old graveyard. That's what the living always say. Somchai felt an icy presence near his neck, as if someone were leaning close, whispering directly into his ear. But the dead remember everything. The truck rolled through a puddle. Water splashed upward, but instead of falling immediately, the droplets hung suspended in the air for an unnaturally long second before dropping back down. Somchai knew that from the moment he asked that question. He was no longer just a driver offering a ride. He had become part of the road itself. Chapter 8. The Dead Woman's Warning. The road suddenly narrowed. The rows of rubber trees pressed closer together, their pale trunks flaking under the headlights like enormous upright bones. The air grew colder, not the chill of night wind, but a cold that seeped upward from the ground itself, crawling through the soles of Somchai's shoes and into his spine. Ahead, a faint light appeared. Not the glow of houses. Candlelight. An old roadside shrine stood by the edge of the road, small and low. Its tiled roof broken in places. Its walls stained black from years of incense smoke. Inside, a Buddha statue sat with part of its face chipped away. Its eyes no longer clearly formed, as though time itself had deliberately erased its ability to see the living. Somchai slowed instinctively. At that moment, her voice came sharply, more urgent than before. Don't stop. For the first time, there was emotion in her voice. Not anger, not pain, but warning. This place does not accept the living. Somchai shivered. He glanced at the passenger side window, now fogged over. A handprint was pressed against the mist, 5 fingers clearly visible. Yet no fingerprints at all. Where is this? He asked quietly. It's where people leave behind the things they don't want to take home. The truck rolled slowly past the shrine. Somchai saw strips of red cloth tied to the nearby trees, hanging limp and faded. At the base of the trunks lay countless paper talismans, their ink washed pale, many torn in half, as though someone had changed their mind halfway through a ritual. If you stop, her voice continued, you will be seen. Somchai did not ask. By whom? He already knew. As the truck passed the shrine, the headlights flickered. In the brief darkness, Somchai heard overlapping whispers, many voices speaking at once, close and suffocating, their words impossible to distinguish. Then the lights returned. The shrine was behind them. Somchai gasped, as if he had just crossed an invisible boundary. He wanted to turn back and look, but his neck felt stiff, locked in place. You shouldn't turn around, she said, as though reading his thoughts. There are things that, if you look directly at them, will think you've invited them to come along. The smell of incense suddenly filled the cabin, thick and acrid, stinging Somchai's eyes. He coughed, tears forming. Why are you helping me? He asked, unsure himself why he still had the calm to speak. A brief silence followed. Because you're still driving. Her answer sent a chill through him. As long as you keep moving forward, you're still alive. The truck accelerated, leaving the shrine behind. The darkness ahead opened wider, deeper, heavier, and Somchai understood then that not every danger on this road came from the woman traveling with him. Some things out there were waiting for both of them. Chapter 9. The Cold Hand. The truck jolted violently as the rear wheel dropped into a deep pothole. The sudden impact threw Somchai forward. The steering wheel swerved left before he forced it straight again in a split second. His heart pounded, blood rushing to his temples, his ears ringing as if someone had struck them hard. And then, a hand rested on his shoulder. It wasn't a light touch meant to get his attention. It wasn't a reassuring pat. It came down slowly, deliberately, each finger settling against his shirt as if measuring the shape of a living body. Cold. Not the cold of night air, but the cold of deep well water, of damp earth that never sees sunlight. Cold enough that Somchai felt the warmth inside him being drawn out. Little by little, through that single point of contact. He froze. His breath caught in his throat. Drive carefully. Her voice whispered right beside his ear. No distance left between them. I don't want to die again. The words were soft, but each one pierced Somchai's mind like a needle. He wanted to scream, to jerk away from that touch. But his body betrayed him. His shoulder felt unbearably heavy, as if the weight of an entire person, no of many years, was pressing down on him. The hand tightened slightly. It didn't hurt, but it was enough for Somchai to understand that if it wished to, it could tighten more. Please, Somchai whispered, his voice breaking. Let go of me. Silence followed. The hand remained, colder, deeper, as if the chill were seeping through bone, searching for his heart. I'm only reminding you. Her voice softened, almost weary. That night, someone was driving fast, just like you. Fragments of memory flooded Somchai's mind, out of order, without logic. Headlights blurring in heavy rain, the scream of tires skidding in vain, a figure falling unnaturally slowly, as if time itself were stretching the moment so no one could deny it. The hand lifted from his shoulder. Somchai gasped, his shoulder aching as though it had been submerged in ice water for far too long. He looked into the rearview mirror on instinct. No one was there. But on his shirt, a wet handprint was clearly visible, 5 slender fingers soaked into the fabric. Cold and dark. It did not evaporate. It did not dry. You see now, her voice said, this time a little farther away. Not everything that touches you wants to harm you. Somchai swallowed, his throat burning. Then, what do you want from me? The truck continued rolling forward, steady and relentless. A faint sigh filled the cabin. I just want you to remember. The cold hand was no longer on his shoulder. But Somchai knew. From that moment on, the cold had stayed inside him. Chapter 10. The Truth in the Mirror. Somchai knew he could no longer avoid it. From the moment the cold hand left his shoulder, something inside him had fallen out of rhythm. His breathing was uneven, his heartbeat felt unfamiliar, and more than anything else, fear had crossed the boundary of imagination. It had become something tangible, heavy, real, occupying his chest. The rearview mirror was still there. A small piece of glass reflecting the space behind him. It made no sound. It did not move. Yet Somchai felt as if it were waiting for him, waiting for the moment he was brave enough, or desperate enough, to look straight into it. He blinked. Then he looked. This time, there was no blur. No missing pieces. The woman sat upright in the back seat. Her long hair fell loose, no longer hiding her face. Her features were clearly visible, pale. Her skin stretched thin like damp paper. Her eyes were wide, black, and so deep that Somchai felt if he stared too long, he would be pulled into them. She was staring directly into the mirror. Staring directly at him. Somchai screamed. The sound never left the cabin. It was swallowed whole, crushed in his throat as if by an unseen hand. His voice burned, but no echo followed. He twisted around in his seat. The back seat was empty. No body. No shadow. Only the cloth bag. It lay exactly where it always had, unmoved. But now Somchai could see clearly. The fabric was soaked, not with rainwater, but with something darker, seeping slowly into the seat beneath it. A faint metallic smell spread through the air. You can't look at me directly. Her voice echoed, not from behind him, not beside him, but everywhere. Mirrors are the only things that still remember my shape. Somchai trembled. He covered his face with both hands, like a child hiding from a nightmare while knowing he would not wake up. You're dead, aren't you? He sobbed. There was no immediate answer. Only the sound of the truck moving forward, endlessly, relentlessly. I died here. Her voice was low. But I was never allowed to leave. The image in the mirror shifted. It was no longer the truck's cabin. It became a rain-soaked road. Headlights flared harshly. A woman stood at the roadside, one arm wrapped around her stomach, her other hand raised in a plea. A truck sped toward her. It did not stop. It did not turn back. Somchai collapsed forward onto the steering wheel. He remembered now. Do you see? Her voice whispered, not accusing, not angry. Mirrors always tell the truth. It's the living who refuse to look. Tears dripped from Somchai's face onto the wheel. The truck kept moving. The road did not end. And Somchai understood that from this moment on, This journey was no longer about taking someone home. It was a journey, bringing him back to the place he had once driven past. Chapter 11. The accident years ago. Rain began to fall. Not real rain outside the truck, but rain inside a memory. It came without warning, thick and heavy, as if the sky had waited all this time just to pour everything down at once. The sound of rain striking the windshield echoed sharply, blending with the steady rhythm of the wipers sweeping back and forth, over and over, in a way that felt almost cruel. Somchai couldn't remember when he had turned the wipers on. In the rearview mirror, the road behind him was no longer the forest path. It had become a soaked stretch of highway. Streetlights dim and blurred, their reflections shattered across the wet asphalt like broken glass. It was painfully familiar. That night had also been a night of rain. Somchai was much younger then. He drove faster, and his mind held only one thought: I had to get home in time. In time for the schedule. In time for the delivery. In time for his own life. Through the curtain of rain, he saw a figure by the roadside. A woman. Her dress clung to her body, soaked through. One arm was wrapped around her stomach. The other was raised weakly, as if every passing second drained what little strength she had left. He saw her clearly, and he slowed down. Just a little. Long enough to see her pale face, her wide, terrified eyes, and the dark stain spreading across the fabric of her dress. Then Somchai glanced at the rearview mirror. He thought about the empty road, about trouble, about the stories he had heard, about staged accidents, about traps set for drivers in the rain. And he pressed the accelerator. The truck surged forward, leaving behind the sweep of its headlights across the woman's body before swallowing her in darkness and rain. Somchai told himself someone else would stop. That he wasn't the only car on the road. That he hadn't directly caused her death. But a few hundred meters later, he heard it. The scream of brakes behind him. The sound of impact. A dull, brutal noise, metal colliding with flesh and bone. Somchai did not look back. He did not stop. He drove all the way home, carrying the weight in his chest, and buried it beneath the years that followed. In the present cabin, the woman's voice returned, no anger, no pain left in it now. Only truth. You didn't kill me. Somchai squeezed his eyes shut. Tears spilled freely. But you chose not to save me. The rain inside the memory stopped. The forest road reappeared ahead. Somchai gasped, his hands shaking on the steering wheel. He understood then that for all these years, he had continued living by leaving someone else behind on that road. And tonight, the nameless road had decided to return that memory to him. Chapter 12. The one who owes a debt. After the rain of memory passed, the space inside the truck grew terrifyingly still. There was no wind, no whispering voices. Only the steady hum of the engine remained, beating like the heart of a body that was exhausted yet stubbornly clinging to life. Somchai drew in a deep breath, but each one felt heavy, as if the air itself had been mixed with something that did not belong to the living. Do you want me to die too? The question slipped out before he could stop it. His voice was hoarse, stripped of panic now, leaving only the weariness of someone who had run for too long without knowing what he was running from. Silence followed. Somchai felt as though the woman was looking straight through him, not with eyes, but with something deeper, something that pierced skin and bone and reached the part of him he had hidden for years. If I wanted you dead. Her voice came slowly, clearly. You wouldn't still be sitting there. Somchai shuddered. You weren't the first to drive past me that night, she continued. But you were the only one who looked long enough to understand that I needed help. The image returned to him, the moment he slowed, the moment their eyes met, the moment he could have stopped and didn't. From that moment on, her voice lowered. You carried me with you, without knowing it. Somchai tightened his grip on the steering wheel. His knuckles ached. Carried you? How? A faint sigh filled the cabin, nearly dissolving into the air. With your silence. The words struck him like a blow to the chest. He remembered the nights he woke without knowing why. The half-formed dreams of rain-soaked roads and figures waiting endlessly by the roadside. He had always dismissed them as passing nightmares. "The dead don't always need blood," she said. "Some spirits only need to be remembered." Sanchai swallowed hard. What do I have to do? For the first time on this journey, the question carried no fear. It sounded like a confession, a man finally willing to face a debt he could no longer ignore. The cloth bag on the back seat shifted slightly. "Take me back to where I died," she answered. "And don't turn away again." The road ahead seemed darker, yet no longer twisted or distorted. It felt straighter, quieter, as though once Sanchai accepted his role, the road itself stopped hiding its face. He nodded, unsure whether she could see him. "All right," he whispered, "I'll take you back." In that moment, Sanchai understood a painful truth. He had not been drawn into this journey to be punished. He had been called. Because only the one who owes the debt can repay it. Chapter 13. The Destination. At last, the road changed. Not suddenly, but like an old man who, after walking for far too long, finally allowed himself to stop. The cracked asphalt gradually gave way to hardened earth mixed with gravel. The tires slowed, each rotation dragging something heavy behind it, as though the road itself were pulling a lifetime to a halt. The headlights illuminated an open clearing in the forest. There stood a massive tree, an ancient rubber tree long dead. Its hollow trunk rotted from within, its bark peeling away in strips like skin sloughing off after a long, feverish illness. Around its base, strips of red, yellow, and white cloth were tied in tangled layers. Frayed and faded with age, they hung motionless, not stirring, even though the air was cold and damp. The truck stopped on its own. Sanchai did not press the brake. He did not pull the handbrake. It stopped as if the road itself had decided there was no need to go any farther. "We're here." The woman's voice was close now, but it no longer startled him. Sanchai turned off the engine. The sudden silence was so heavy his ears rang. He stepped out of the truck. The ground beneath his feet was icy and soft, damp like freshly turned soil. There was no forest scent, no trace of wind, only the smell of earth that had been disturbed again and again, a smell Sanchai knew well from village funerals. The cloth bag lay on the back seat. Sanchai opened the door and picked it up. The bag was lighter than he expected, yet the moment he touched it, he felt as if he were holding something filled with unbearable weight. The fabric was cold and wet, but it did not drip, as though it had absorbed moisture for so long it could never dry again. "I'm here." For the first time, Sanchai saw her standing outside the truck. Not in the mirror. Not in his imagination. She stood beneath the tree. Slender, her old silk dress brushing the ground. Her face was pale, but no longer distorted. She looked like an ordinary woman, if not for her eyes, which reflected no light at all. "That night," she said softly, "I fell here." Sanchai looked down. Beneath the layer of dead leaves was a dark stain spreading through the soil, as if the ground itself had never forgotten the blood that soaked into it. Beside the tree was a low, misshapen mound of earth, no marker, no name. "No one came back," she continued. "Until you." Sanchai sank to his knees. Not because he was forced to, but because his legs could no longer support him. He placed the cloth bag before the mound. His hands trembled as he opened it. There was no gold inside. No valuables. Only a tiny child's shirt, yellowed with age, folded with heartbreaking care. Sanchai broke down. Not with sound. Just dry, broken sobs that tore through his chest. "You can't take me any farther," the woman said. "But you can, stop walking away." A breeze passed through the clearing. For the first time, the strips of cloth tied to the tree stirred gently. Sanchai understood then. The destination had been here all along. He had only needed to travel this far. To finally stop. In the right place. Chapter 14. The Price of Turning Back. Sanchai knelt beneath the tree for a long time. Time no longer seemed to exist in that place. There was no clock, no sun or moon to measure its passing. Only the cold seeping up from the ground, creeping into his knees and along his spine, reminding him quietly that he was still alive, and therefore still capable of feeling pain. The woman stood across from him. She did not step closer. She did not move away. The distance between them remained fixed, like an invisible boundary, one that, if crossed, would make it impossible for anything to return to the way it had been. "Do you think bringing me here is enough?" Her voice carried no accusation, no challenge. It was simply a question that demanded an honest answer. Somchai lowered his head. "I don't think it's enough," he said softly. "I just know, I can't walk away again." A cold wind passed through, carrying the scent of damp earth and rotting leaves. The strips of cloth tied to the tree brushed against one another, whispering softly, like garments brushing past someone moving very slowly. "People often believe that turning back is enough," the woman said. "But turning back only means you've begun to see. It is not the price." Somchai looked up. "Then what is the price?" The words burned his throat as he spoke them. He knew some answers followed a person for the rest of their life. The woman studied him for a long moment. In her dark, lightless eyes there was no hatred, but no easy forgiveness either. Only truth, the thing the living avoid most. "You will remember," she spoke slowly. "Not as a nightmare that fades when morning comes, but every time you place your hands on a steering wheel. Every time you see someone standing by the roadside at night. And every time you are given a choice, to stop, or to keep driving." Somchai felt his chest tighten. "You will go on living," she continued, "but you will never again live in innocence." He nodded, without hesitation. "I accept." The moment the words left him, Somchai felt an invisible weight lift from his chest, leaving behind a hollow ache, painful, but lighter, as if a debt had finally been written clearly, no longer left vague and unspoken. The woman stepped back once. "Then you may go back." Somchai looked up sharply. "And you?" he asked. A faint smile appeared on her pale face, not a smile of joy, but of release. "I'm home already." She stepped back again. Her form began to fade, not vanishing abruptly, but thinning like mist before sunrise. The hem of her silk dress brushed the ground one last time, then dissolved with the rest of her. Only the tree remained, the low mound of earth, and the strips of cloth swaying softly in the wind. Somchai rose to his feet. His legs trembled, but they held him. He turned back toward the truck. For the first time since the journey began, he was not afraid to turn around. Chapter 15. The 1WHO stands by the road at night. The next morning, Somchai's truck was found parked along the provincial road. There were no signs of an accident. No skid marks. No smell of fuel or smoke. The vehicle sat neatly by the roadside, as if its owner had only stopped briefly to rest and would return at any moment. Inside the cabin, the key was still in the ignition. The radio was off. The back seat was empty. Somchai himself was nowhere to be found. The police concluded that he must have walked away during the night for personal reasons. The case was closed quickly. The nameless road remained off the maps, as it always had, and few people cared enough to question it. But night drivers knew. They began sharing small, fragmented stories, never loudly, never all at once, just enough to make the listener fall silent for a while. They said that since then, on the old road cutting through the rubber forest, around 12:17 a.m., there would sometimes be a man standing by the roadside. He wore a worn driver's jacket. His head was lowered, both arms clutched an old, frayed cloth bag tightly against his chest. He never waved for help. He never chased after passing vehicles. He simply stood there, exactly where the headlights reached, on the thin boundary between light and darkness. If a car slowed down, he would lift his head. His face was gaunt. His eyes looked tired, but not hostile. His voice was rough, yet polite enough to make it difficult to refuse. "Could you give me a ride for a short distance? It's very late." Those who didn't stop often suffered nightmares afterward. They dreamed of driving endlessly along a road with no exit, the clock frozen in place, and something sitting quietly behind them in the rearview mirror, watching. Those who did stop rarely told their stories in full. Only scattered details remained. The smell of damp earth inside the car, a coldness that came from nowhere, and the strange sensation of being guided backward, into a memory that did not belong to them. The elders in the village say Somchai did not die. He simply stayed. Stayed to do what he failed to do on that rainy night long ago. Stayed to remind others that some choices, once ignored, demand payment for a lifetime. And they say that the woman who once stood by the roadside no longer appears. In her place stands a man. So if one night you find yourself driving through rural Thailand, along a road with no name, and someone asks you for a ride, look carefully into your rearview mirror. Not to see who is sitting behind you, but to ask yourself, if it were you, would you stop? Because there are roads that give you only one chance to turn back. And if you miss it, the next time, the one standing by the roadside may be you. They say the road is still there. They say someone is still standing by the roadside after midnight, waiting. So if one night you're driving alone, and someone asks you for a ride, remember this story. Because some roads forgive you only once, and some passengers never leave.
Like and subscribe to Whispering Dark Tales for more chilling ghost stories.